Sure, take it.
This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for How to Superage with Elise Marie Collins. And today, Elise and I are going to talk together, no guest, something a little bit different. We're going to talk about purpose. So, Elise, tell me what you think that all means.
Well, purpose I find very fascinating in our years, I'd say from 50, 60, and beyond, because everything to that point has brought us to where we are, right? And some of us, maybe we felt like we sort of peaked or lived our life purpose, or, we did it back then,
Right.
but we can't do it now. Or we might have regrets. I didn't do this at this time, and now it's too late. And I think those are two very important parts of purpose that I want to address today, because I think A, it's never too late. And B, I think even if some of us had a trajectory where we might have did something really amazing and fantastic when we were younger, and we kind of think we can't top that or we can't beat that. How do we redirect? So I've got some ideas about that, and I really am excited to hear how you are helping people, Karen, with how to superage, because purpose is such a big part of that. And I write about it in my book. I have a whole chapter on purpose. I think it changes through our life trajectory. We need to make adjustments, just like if we were in a sports game. I'm also a sports fan. So if we're in a baseball game, we're in the eighth, we're in the ninth inning, it's the fourth quarter. So things need to be adjusted. We can't play like it's the beginning of the game or the beginning of the season, but we still have, I'm tapping on my heart. If you're listening to this, we still have our heart, we still have our mind, and we need to adjust. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this subject today because I've been writing about it for the last 2 months. I think I've mentioned it on this show before. I belong to a group online called the Ethel Circle, and it's through AARP, and we are women from all around the world. And what I'm finding interesting, there's an age, and I don't even know what that age is, but there is an age, like you said, we get to a point and we go, now what? Okay. If you're a parent, your kids maybe have moved out of the house. Okay. And now it's just you and your husband, or maybe you've gone through a divorce. So many things could have happened, at this age. And then we say, well, everything good that happened to me happened in the past. But like you said, we can make those good things happen again. We just have to adjust. And sometimes it's hard for us to sit down and say, what's really important to me? And I know I went through a long time like that. It was like people would ask me, what do you like to do? And I would shrug my shoulders. Um, the reality of it is you got to dig deep, because so many of us, for that first 25, 40 years of our life, we've been doing for others. And in your case, you still are, because you still have your parents. Okay. You have a son, and it's like, when is the time for me? And that's what we have to start looking at.
Yeah, I love it. You brought up a couple different things. One I heard was a group. And if you could say the name of that group again, and then let's link it into our podcast notes.
Sure.
What is the name of the group you
It's called
mentioned?
the Ethel Circle, and there's women from all around. In fact, where I live in Northeast Ohio, there's at least 3 groups that have already started that meet outside of Facebook. Um, they get together, they have meals, they go to museums. It's a great place for women of all backgrounds to get together. And I'd love to see men format something like this, because I know, like my husband, he had a lot of friends when he was much younger, but probably in the last 20, 30 years, I'm his friend, and that's great, but we need more than that.
Yeah, great. Another great topic. So, yeah, let's link that in the chat because community is so important. And that's going to help us get to that purpose because none of us can do it on our own. So, we want to link to community, like-minded people. And it doesn't necessarily mean only your generation. In this case, it's a generational, like I'll call it an affinity group where
Yep,
we're all in affinity going through similar things, but from different backgrounds. And then we might have other groups which are intergenerational, families, maybe interest groups. I just see a lot to, okay, there's so many things to talk about in this. One thing I'll say too is we don't want to generationally segregate ourselves because I think that disconnects us from something that is beyond our physical age, our biological age. And okay, hold on one second. There's somebody. Sorry, I'm recording. Can you close the door? Thanks. Okay, I forgot to tell all systems in the home that we're recording. I was just like, I think someone's going to try to come downstairs. So, yeah, the generations. And when the generations are connecting, then we can, if we have a family, we have that in common. Maybe we have an interest such as fashion or music or, romance novels. I work with a literary community that is intergenerational, and anyone who loves books, there's all kinds of different genres of books, and there's just women who like books. And so we can communicate through that shared love. So we need a lot of different groups. And then you also talked about your husband not having as many friends, and that's something really important that I actually have that on my email signature, something that says, was a quote of one of my professors when I studied gerontology, Fernando Gilles Torres. I think I said his name right, Torres Gilles. I sometimes mix up that hyphenation. He is a professor of gerontology, and he had such wisdom to share. And one of the things he said that someone told him was, if you want to live to be a centenarian, make younger friends. And that can be applied to any age
right,
because our friends move away as we age for different reasons. And they may not live as long as we do. So we need to make friends in different generations. And I've noticed the same thing with my parents. My mom has more friends, my dad less. And so, especially for the men, and especially if the men are widowed or divorced or never married or never, with a partner, they could be with a male partner. So they really need to connect with all generations because we need to really have that wide circle to support us. And that's a little
exactly.
sidebar to purpose, but I think all these things support that purpose.
So, what I find interesting is that up until about 4 years ago, my husband had uh, a side job, and he worked with mostly younger individuals. I would say their age range was anywhere from 18 to maybe 27. And when he was working with them, he was so much younger in spirit than he is now. And they didn't look at him as being old enough to be their parent or grandparent. He was just one of them. And I know that's one of the things that he misses in the work that he's doing now. But he does tend, at least when he's out amongst, out in public, he tries to interact with younger people rather than older people, which I sometimes find a little strange. It's like, hey, you look like maybe you're a voyeur, but but he'll say, no, I'm just having a conversation, either mentioning their music, their dress, whatever. And I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes that helps us to reconnect to our purpose, to see what things are trending, what things are new. Some of us have grandchildren, or some of us, I don't have any grandchildren, but my parents have grandchildren. I know they learn a lot through the grandchildren. And that's another part of purpose, because we can see how the world's evolving. We may have even gotten sort of stuck in our purpose because maybe things weren't the way we wanted them to be in any area of life. But now maybe there's hope because the youth are changing it up or doing something different. I think that is very important. And probably why your husband is engaging younger people, I can imagine. But that's a lovely quality. And I'll just also add that I've noticed that on social media and maybe in conversation, there's a lot of talk about generations, which sometimes can cause us to be more cognizant of that. I think it's just one piece. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands you don't have to be so fixated on, I'm this way because of my generation. I'm this way
Right.
because of my generation. There's a lot of differences depending on when we were born because of the historical circumstances. Right now, I'm reading a book called The Anxious Generation, which I would highly recommend. The Anxious Generation is all about growing up with social media and devices, iPhones, smartphones, tablets, and everything like that, not just because of the social aspect or social media, but because it takes us away, or children away from play,
Yes.
from physical embodied play. It's a great book. And that does create a big difference. But I'm still saying there's similarities, and we don't need to just keep, putting up these walls like, I'm in this generation, so I'm going to be like this.
Well, and social media, as long as we're on the subject, has taken away that one-on-one contact. Yes, we can have it in Zoom, but there's still something lacking. And I'm hearing of women who are in their 50s and above who want to get back into maybe the dating scene. It's like, there once was a time when I could go to an event in the city and I could meet somebody. But now I do this event online, and it's like there's no touch, there's no smell, there's no real connection. And now I hear people are saying, "Oh, I went out on a date last night, but the date was online." Okay. So, you know, for some people, that's good. That's what some people need. When I look at what I need in my life, um, I need the connections that I have online, but then I have to take them outside of there. And there once was a time that I did not feel comfortable in a group. I always felt like I was the odd one out. And now today, I'm learning how to, hey, if I act like that, I'm going to miss out. And so I have to walk into a room and not just let everybody know that I'm there, but make myself comfortable enough to be there. And that's one of the things I've noticed on social media with you. I love when you post pictures of you being at sporting events
Yeah.
because it tells me there's this other side of Elise. You're not just working all the time. You're not just taking care of your parents all the time. You're taking care of you. And part of your purpose is engaging with your friends and going to sporting events. And that's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, there was so much in what you just said. I'm almost like, now I can't remember what I was going to say. But yes, I love sports because they're in-person collective. You can also watch on TV. My dad watches a lot of sports on TV. And honestly, where I get my love of sports is from my parents who always, either gave me tickets, took me to games. When I was growing up, we didn't actually go to as many games, but later in life, they got really into sports. And my dad has always been, he loves baseball, football. So I grew that love from them, but it is a really fun activity. And one of the things I love, especially about baseball, and one of the reasons I'm so sad that our team, the Oakland A's, have now left. They're kind of close by, but one of the problems is they moved to Sacramento and they moved. I don't like the owner. Okay. I just don't like the owner, but that's another subject. The reason I loved the Oakland A's because their tickets were affordable, and baseball is a little more affordable as a sport for families. I always went with my family with different generations, my cousins' kids, my parents, different. Yeah. I can't say I ever went with my grandparents, but it's like my parents went with my son. So there was three generations, or
Sure.
sometimes friends and then their kids, and all these generations could get together, tailgate, or just hang out at the ballpark and have fun, see each other, enjoy each other. Baseball's affordable because there's so many darn games.
Yep.
Football, you got one game and those tickets are, you're not going to buy your family like
Right.
$1,000 tickets. And that's what's happened to the A's. Even just moving to a smaller ballpark, the tickets are unaffordable, which I find very sad. But we're creating new teams in our area. They're not at the level of MLB, but I think they're going to be more fun and oriented towards family. That's what I love about it.
And your Oakland A's are going to be moving either further away from you eventually.
Eventually, if they get to Las Vegas, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see when when that
What
happens.
happens there?
Some of us are skeptical because it's sad, because I think sports teams, there's an aspect of stewardship. I think we're
Yep.
going to an era where we need more connection. And the sports owners, I'm saying this generally too, to everyone, because you don't have to be an Oakland A's fan.
Sure.
That this whole a deep dive. But I think sports teams, ideally, they're owned by people that love the community and want to grow the fan base and make it part, because it's embedded in the community. There's
Yes.
an aspect of service. Again, families coming together, generations rooting for a team, a little silly. It's all fun and silliness, which we need. And we've got owners that are like that. And then we've got other owners that just like the one I've been talking about, that seem checked out and decked out. They don't care. It's just another part of their portfolio, which I find disheartening.
Yeah.
So I like, and I think another thing that I think we're going to see grow is possibly, groups owning the team. I know that I think the Green Bay Packers are owned by the fans, maybe more fan ownership, because it's something that it, it contributes to the community, but how much economically is up for grabs. I'll tie this in with purpose, I promise.
Yep.
But see, it
No,
kind of
but
gives
that
us,
is a purpose.
it
Yeah.
is a purpose. It's rooting for a team kind of gives you this little silliness, and you can talk about that with a wider group. It brings people together. The only time I've seen it not bring people together, I lived in Europe and England and Scotland, and I did notice it was funny because the rivalries there are so strong and hundreds of years old. Like people in a town just a few miles away, they hate the other team with a vengeance. It's like,
Wow.
hate those people. And I'm like, really? It's just, this is all in good fun. In the United States, we move around so much. We're a younger country. Our sports, we don't want to take it that seriously, I believe. It's fun and it's sad when we lose. And sometimes we do take it too seriously, but it's meant to be a connection where people from all walks of life can talk about the game or what happened,
Exactly.
commiserate or celebrate.
Yep. You got it. And different things bring us together. And I think what we need to understand is that's part of our purpose. But I think on a daily basis, if I were to ask a total stranger, well, what's your purpose? What gets you excited? Most people are going to look at you like you're crazy, like, nothing, because either I'm working or I'm taking care of somebody or my health isn't the best. And I had a client last week who kept telling me the same thing week after week. So last week I finally said, I don't think you're serious about wanting to make any changes. And her comment to me was, well, yes, I am. And I said, but let's talk about it. We've been working together for 3 weeks. You have excuses for all these things. Okay. There's got to be something that you like. I don't care what it is. There's got to be something. And she thought for a while and she started to cry. And I said, well, that's a good start. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, something's holding you back. And she goes, it's my grandkids, but I don't get to see them often. And she explained the situation. She's got a great relationship with them, but they live far from her. So her relationship mostly is FaceTime. And we started turning it around, how she can make it feel better. Can you afford to go see them more often? And as it turns out, she can, but she didn't want to intrude. And I said, so now we have to start a new dialogue. But it's starting the dialogue inside of ourselves because her feeling was she really had no purpose. Nothing really excited her. And the more I pushed at it, it was like, okay, there is something. Now, I went through that myself about 15 years ago. Somebody would have asked me, what's your favorite food, your favorite book, the favorite thing you like to do? I probably would have just said, oh, I love my work, which I did. But that wasn't my purpose. And when I had to leave the job, I felt lost. Who am I? If I've been saying for years, my job is what drives me, that's pretty bad. And so it took me a while. And when I started to figure out what it was, I saw that I could take it any place. So podcasting was one, coaching, getting together with friends, being able to have them say, no, I'm busy, I can't do it, without feeling rejected. Those are all the things that we need to sort of work on because life is in front of us, not behind us.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. And what I love about that is you touched on so many things that purpose, I think sometimes we think purpose is going to hit us like a lightning bolt. It's going to just wake us up in the middle of the night or wake us up in the morning and suddenly it's all going to be so clear. But it never is, right? It's like a breadcrumb approach. We're going to have to take it day by day, moment by moment, and we're going to be resistant. We're even going to resist our own purpose, for goodness sakes. And that's why that story was so beautiful, because here's a client who hired you to find out her purpose. Yet part of her didn't want to find out that purpose. Part of her was like, no, 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 no. And I, in my current job, have studied something called motivational interviewing. And what you did, I think it kind of happens naturally, motivational interviewing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you can search it and even look it up in Google, or like I was thinking there's going to be a YouTube video. There's probably podcasts on it. But motivational interviews really helpful, especially for health and also for people with addiction issues. And it's used with the disabled population who I'm working with now. I coach people with developmental disabilities with all different capacities, because we can have a mental, physical, or psychological mental health disability. And sometimes those can come on with age. So these are things that we grapple with. That's why I'm talking about motivational interviewing, because it's so helpful when we get to a place where we're stuck. What motivational interviewing does is it kind of pulls it out from you, because you and I both know, I think I'm speaking for you, but you can correct me. I don't like to speak for others, but I know, I'll speak for myself then. I know that if I just tell someone, oh, I think you should do this. They're not going to listen to me. They're going to just keep doing what they're doing. I have to get them to listen to themselves. Maybe it's going to take, like you said, 3 sessions for her to give you excuses. And as coaches, yeah, we don't want to hear excuses. However, sometimes the excuses lead us to the gold. And then we
Exactly.
can say, you've told me blah, you've told me blah, blah, and blah. Why did you hire me?
Yep.
And then they start to cry, which shows you, wow, there was an emotional blockage. And so I love that, that was such a beautiful example of a purpose that's not like a giant P, but a little P, not to us, because I know I don't have grandchildren again, but her grandchildren meant the world to her, but somehow she had diminished that, or she had put it aside, thinking that it's not important, or for whatever reason, but it was her purpose, and you brought it to light. So I love that.
Well, and it's interesting. You and I have talked about this before, but when my youngest son moved away, um, I was ready for him to move away, but I was not ready for him to move away. I mean, he lived with us till he was 31 years old. Okay. And so you don't, you see the growth, you see the maturity, but you still think of them as your child living at home. And here he moved away, and I thought, now what do I do? You know, I don't have somebody to tell him, call me if you're going to be running late tonight. Not that he had to, but I would say those things. And now it was like this emptiness. And he and I actually had to sit down and identify really what my role is. But I'm the one who identified it for him, which was great, because if he would have told me, Mom, I don't want you to do these things anymore, that would have crushed me. But instead, I sat there and we had a conversation, and I now know this is when I can intervene, but this is when I don't intervene. And my purpose is not about making his life better anymore. It's about making my life better. And what a difference. And I'm hoping that other parents who are facing the empty nest syndrome start to get that, because we spend so much time in trying to make our kids happy that when they move away and we become unhappy, they don't, too many of them are walking away from us because they're saying, hey, I'm an adult, I don't need this anymore. And if we look at the new statistics, there are more children who are becoming estranged from their families because they are ready to mature, but the parents are not ready to let them go.
Yeah, wow. Again, you're saying so many things I think are really interesting. How can we, exist together, support each other as family rather than intermesh, interweave. The word codependence comes up. That's kind of a loaded word to me, because I think we're all kind of
Oh,
codependent.
sure. Yeah.
Sometimes people say that's codependent, but we're all codependent. We start out as babies as codependent. We become codependent as we age. But I love that you spoke it out with your son. You establish his needs, your needs, breaking it down to brass tacks. What do you need? Sometimes with my son, I'll say, do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to offer advice? Because I'm always like, I got so much advice.
Right.
Coach, and even as a coach too, I love to give advice, but sometimes people just need to let it out, to have a listening ear. And it's so important to ask permission rather than just blast them, especially as a parent, because our voices, like, here's how I think of parents' voices when we're adults.
Yep.
I can say the same advice to, a friend or even a stranger, and they'd be like, oh, okay. And they'll take it with a grain of salt. But when you tell your kids something, they still hear it from the mother that is like holding them like a baby, or, helping them when they skin their knee. So the volume that they hear your advice at, it's like blasting in their ears, and it's really hard for them to let it go. So it's important that we understand our role as parents to step back because we've had so much power and now we need to, it's hard to let go of that. It's hard to dance that dance. And then I want to say that something about the estrangement piece, because one person I'm trying to get as a guest on the show, she has a YouTube channel called Elder Gal, and she's estranged from her children. And I don't know, I can't remember all of her story, but I just really like her storytelling. And talk about purpose. What I've been noticing, I think, because when you go on YouTube and you look for one thing, then that thing kind of keeps coming at you, if you know what I mean. So if I look for, let's say, if I look for cat videos on YouTube, YouTube's going to send me 20,000 cat videos. But what it's been doing is there's a lot of over 50, over 60 YouTubers that are very popular and saying really interesting things, very different than other YouTubers. A lot of it's more raw. It's not like, oh, it's a perfect video. And I'm enjoying the storytelling. And a lot of the themes that we're touching on are in these videos too. So maybe your purpose is to tell your story through writing a book, through going on YouTube. But you have a fear. I can't write a book. I can't go on YouTube. Well, look around you. There's so many of us getting older together, and a lot of them are doing probably something similar or exactly what you want to do.
Well, and I will tell you, this group that I mentioned, the Ethel Circle, there are so many women who are now actually journaling to the group, which is great. And, you can do it anonymously if you think you may have a friend on in the group that you don't want them to recognize that it's you. I don't ever do it anonymously because I'm an open book. But I think it's important when we share our story, we hear ourselves talking, and sometimes it will halt us in our steps and go, oh, I don't want to do that anymore, or I don't want to feel that way anymore. Or when we're telling our story and the other person's listening and they're going, I'm not alone. I go through those same feelings. And how important is that now to find that something that makes you feel good at the end of the day? My mother used to call it, something about, don't share your misery. Oh, misery loves company is what she'd say. And I used to tell her, no, Mom, that's not what it is. I'm looking for people who I can relate to. And these are my feelings. So there's got to be somebody else out there who has similar feelings. And just keep looking. And like you said, YouTube has tons of information out there. So Google something that you think is important and you'll find something.
You'll find it and you'll get sent another
Yeah.
20 videos with the same topic.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. You'll even find New Cleveland Radio.
We show up quite a bit, which is wonderful. So, but one of the things I've learned from you, Elise, is that, and I'm so glad we've been doing this podcast for as long as we have, because we keep learning new things, whether it's about purpose of our nutrition. Okay. And I have to tell you, I was probably a month or two ago, we were talking about nutritional foods and supplements. And I started backing off on some of the supplements to eat the nutritional foods. And I have been struggling losing weight. I've been losing like a quarter of a pound, a month. Now, hey, that's good. Eventually it comes off. But when you look at the scale, it's like, oh, a quarter of a pound this month. Oh, now it's a half a pound. When I started changing the actual foods, not only do I feel much, much better, but I'm losing the weight. And it's not easy, and I'll be the first one to say that. But one of my purposes right now is to be the healthiest that I can be. And I do have some medical diagnoses that could take me down. Okay. And when I say down, make me not want to do things. Okay. I have 2 rotator cuff injuries, one in each arm. But as you see, I am moving because I refuse not to.
Mhm.
I have gut issues. Well, I've learned to eat the right foods. There are things that we can do to make ourselves feel better. And that is a purpose in our life. Who wants to feel sick? None of us.
Absolutely. Yes. And that can be part of our purpose. And it kind of stacks. I mean, we can stack one on top of the other, because what I heard in your share was you're helping yourself to feel better by eating the right foods, doing the movement because you love podcasting. Now, if you had nothing you wanted to wake up in the morning for, that would be a lot harder. Like, why bother?
Right.
Because it kind of snowballs downhill or uphill. And so having our purpose can help us to really have more energy or enthusiasm for doing hard choices. I think it does get easier because once you start eating the healthier foods, you start equating it with, oh, I feel better when I eat X, Y, and Z, and I feel worse when I eat A, B,
Yep.
and C,
Yep.
right?
Oh,
And
exactly.
some people have kind of a black and white thinking, well, and I'll include some of my family members, but I live this long, I want to eat A, B, and C. And I'll just say same thing, motivational interviewing. Okay, well, just notice how you feel, because I know you also like to do this and you like to go out and do this. And sometimes if you eat A, B, and C, you end up in bed all day.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, that's okay. It's all your choice. It's your choice, but I just want you to observe, because I love you and I want to be able to do fun things with you. And, I want you to strike that happy medium, because we should never control anyone's life. And we never want to say, restrict somebody if they love, drinking a bottle of whiskey. No, that's
Yeah.
but in moderation. Like, clearly if someone is doing something very harmful, you want to stop it. But yeah, we want to strike that happy medium. But associating the behaviors with feeling good and our purpose, it starts to kind of steer things in a different direction. And that's what I want to emphasize today. It's like we're slowly changing the trajectory, and we can do that at any time. We don't have to worry about the past. Like you said, people of all ages have changed their health trajectory, their career trajectory, and they're doing all kinds of amazing things. That's why I wrote in my book, Superager, a lot of stories, because the stories motivate us. The stories you've told today. I'll tell another quick one, or just something I read today, actually. I was reading about it was a music festival. I think it was a heavy metal music festival. I'm not a heavy metal person, but Ice-T, who is a rapper and he also has a heavy metal
Yep.
band. Yeah, right. I didn't know his age. I was like, he's 67. It's kind of like a shock to me, because I'm like, wait a minute, isn't it
Yeah.
30 years ago? And he's like 37. Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, it's 30 years have passed since I've seen Ice-T, or more than 30 years. And I was like, how cool is that? This whole review was not on all, I mean, probably a lot of the bands were like the group's members were older, but Ice-T at 67, the whole article was about how he rocked his set, how amazing he was. And he's fun. He's really fun, high level
Yeah.
energy performer. And I was like, that just kind of lit me up, because I thought, how cool is that? He's just having the time of his life. I could tell by the way they wrote the article. And, I hear people all the time saying, I'm too old for that, or this is that, or this is that. He's not listening to that, because he's just, that's his personality. Just go for it. So I'm taking inspiration from his story today, because where am I holding myself back? Where am I thinking, even unconsciously? Sometimes we have to literally dig out these thoughts. And I think that's what you do with your clients as well. And I like to do that too with my clients.
Absolutely. Well, I know you have a couple good guests that you're going to be having on in the future, which I'm really, really looking forward to. And for those of you, who follow this podcast, we've been having it's been tricky trying to get Elise and I together on dates. So we hope it's starting, and I think I said starting in January. We're going to be the first, we're going to record on the first Saturday of each month. Occasionally that might change, but that way there will be some consistency for all of you. And if you have a subject that you want to share with us, please let us know, um, because this is really for the listeners. And if there's something that we've touched on before or something new, please feel free, because sometimes I know that Elise and I get a little tired of talking, so we'd like to hear your voice.
Yeah, well, I had a blast today. It was a whole lot of fun. The time just flew by, and I want to invite everyone listening to write in the comments something about your purpose, how your purpose evolved. I'm assuming maybe you're older, but if you're younger too, how has this helped you? Because sometimes even thinking ahead helps us, because sometimes the young people have so much pressure on themselves. Find your purpose, and it's like you can meander. It's not a straight line. So I hope you found some inspiration today. I really enjoyed this conversation with Karen, and I think we'll do this every once in a while, have these conversations, and we'd love to bring you in and have you tell us about your purpose. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can email me or Karen. And we've got some great guests coming up, some really interesting modalities. Well, I'm not even going to say what it is because I'll butcher it, but we've got homeopathy coming up. And then we've got another one that's kind of has to do with lymphatics. And I think these will be interesting topics because we've talked about purpose in a big sense today, but there's also, little bits of the purpose too that might come out in our health, how it all builds together. So thank you.
Love you. Well, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.